Good morning. Thank you very much for coming here. So I will present the foresight study that has been undertaken by IGAD and INRA, two French research institutions, and I will be speaking on behalf of the whole team. So the whole team is really a collective work, excuse me, that we've been doing. So I'd like to stress that. We've had a project team, we've had thematic workshops with about 80 researchers from all over the world participating and contributing to the work. And there has been a scenario advisory committee with people also from very different institutions. How did we work? First of all, I'd like to stress that Agrément Terra, which is this foresight, before that there was another work which we did, which was called Agrémonde, which was about a foresight study also about feeding the world in 2010. In this Agrémonde study, we got to two scenarios. One which was based on the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which was called Agrémonde Global Orchestration Scenario, and another one which was a normative scenario. But at the end of that work, we realized two things. First of all, that there was very little knowledge about how to feed the world, and especially what was happening on pastures and animal feeding, and that was a very big question. And then second thing, in about 10 years, the world had changed quite a bit, and the questions of land use were really becoming greater and greater, as well as the question of climate change, energy transition, soil erosion, and the fact that it was not bioenergy, and there were about 570 million farmers in the world, and we really had to worry about what would be the future of these 570 million farmers. Not feeding the world, but also how they were going to use the land. So let me stress that the thing about pastures today, about 26% of the land is used for pastures, and that's not counting other things that are used for animal feed. So what is the Agrémonde foresight process? I talk about the process because we've already worked for about 3.5, 4 years, but it's an ongoing thing that will continue. First of all, the way we see foresight. Foresight for us has three components. One is anticipation, thinking what are the possible futures. The second thing is appropriation. And the third thing is proaction. We do foresight to facilitate informed decision-making and multi-stakeholder approach about the futures of land use. We've realized a lot of policymakers have questions about what do we do about it in the future, how to feed the population, improve it, or they have a lot of policy questions, and therefore they need tools to improve and to make decisions about that. So in our anticipation work, we did three things. First of all, we identify the main drivers of land use and food security systems, and I'd really like to emphasize this idea of systems, both at global level and for different regions. And we identify alternative hypotheses about future changes. The second thing, we got to 5 scenarios. A lot of exercises do scenarios around 2 axes. Our scenarios really have the system approach and not about around 2 axes, because we believe that as the world is very complex, when you have 2 axes, you do not reckon of this complexity. And really, this complexity has to be taken into account. And the third thing, we built a database and a model called GlobalAgri, which is a quantitative platform that can be used it has been used for GlobalAgri Agrémonde Terra, but it has also been used by WARI. The IFPRI report is based, the diet chapter is used GlobalAgri, so it's a very large platform. The second thing we've been doing, we've been appropriating. So we had a scenario advisory committee in these workshops. Now we're doing presentations so that people really understand better what we got to. And we're going to have, and have had already, some regional and national workshops. So people can really build at national level their own land use and food security scenario and get answers to the question they have at national level. And so it will lead to pro-action by decision makers. Siwa asked us 4 questions, and I will get through these 4 questions one by one. The first question was, what were the methodological innovation of the foresight exercise? there are three methodological innovations. The first one is we had a systemic participatory approach which combines hypotheses in a very coherent fashion. So we first designed a conceptual framework by making a difference between external drivers of change and direct drivers of change. From these drivers of change, we got hypotheses, and then we were able to design land use scenarios, and these scenarios looked at 5 dimensions of land use: agronomic potential, access to land, which is a very important topic, distribution of land, intensity of land use, and also ecosystem and employment services. So that was the first step of our methodology. From there, for the different drivers, we identified with the thematic workshop, looking at literature with the experts, a number of hypotheses. These hypotheses were then combined in a very coherent fashion to get to scenarios, and we got to 5 scenarios. Someone asked me yesterday, you could have got 100 scenarios. No, because it could have maybe 1 or 2 more, but the idea is that the linkages are very coherent, and after a while, the linkages are no more coherent. So 5 scenarios is pretty much what we could get to. And then with the Global Agriculture platform, we've done a quantitative illustration for each of the scenarios. The second methodological innovation is the combination of qualitative narratives and quantitative approaches. So for nearly each driver, except the drivers on linkages between urban and rural relationships, and also on farm structures, we got some quantitative hypotheses. Just let me illustrate that very briefly. We did for food diets, for example, we did look at the situation in 2010, and then we identified 4 types of possible future diets, one which we call transition to diets based on ultra-processed food, transition to diets based on animal products, regional diversity of diets and food systems, healthy diets based on food diversity. And then we looked at them for each region. We did the same for cropping systems, right? For the different crops and their linkages. Second methodological scenario, innovation, we built national scenarios, and we had them in Tunisia, first by doing a retrospective of land use, then preparing hypotheses at national level, then building scenarios at the national level, and then illustrating them quantitatively. Second thing is what were our unexpected results. Our unexpected results is these 5 scenarios. We didn't think we would get to that. And what's really important is that there's only one scenario that will get to feeding the world in a healthy fashion while also taking care of energy transition, of climate change, of environmental issues, of diets, food diets, because today a lot of people, if there are a lot of undernourished people, there's also a lot of overnourished people, and also a lot of people who lack nutrition. So we got all these 5 scenarios, and for each of them, we looked at how the agronomic potential, access, distribution evolved, and what's the impact on food security. And basically, there's only one scenario that will feed the world while taking that. If you had looked at the thing only quantitatively and seen what is the impact on the land area, what is the impact on permanent crops, on pastures and forests, you could have thought that 2 scenarios were able to feed the world and in a sufficient way. But the thing is, with the qualitative hypothesis, you see that what we call the metropolization scenario, which is the fact that cities are the ones who are driving the way land uses are taking place, are not leading to proper access to the food, and a lot of people are just forgotten. Whereas with the healthy scenario, we take care of all these other dimensions, which are very important, with climate change, energy, and all, employment and everything. What is our new insight about global security? Our new insight is that there is no given pathway to food security while addressing other major challenges. When the IASTD was done, they came out with the conclusion that business as usual is not sufficient. 12 years later, we will not say that. We'll say there's an urgent need for systemic and coherent transformation through multi-stakeholder cooperation, or otherwise the world will really get into, it's not food security problems, it's global security problems. There's a real danger if we do not act rapidly. But it's each country and each region which does have to find its own way through multi-stakeholder discussions. And there are leverage points, so it is possible to change from the metropolization scenario, which is the ongoing pathway, to a healthy scenario, which is far more positive for the world as a whole, for human beings and for the environment. What are, just to identify, what for sub-Saharan Africa, for example, what would be the leverage points to go towards a healthy pathway? It would be mostly secure access to land, to credit and to infrastructures. It would be diversity of seeds available to everyone, and not specialization, but more crop diversification through in the animal and crop integration. It would be better norms, intellectual property rules that favor diversity. It would be labor-intensive, small mechanization, and it would be a better consumption, because for the moment there's a lot of people undernourished and lacking nutrition. Last point, what are our key lessons for researchers? We've identified new research questions that are very important and that are not necessarily well tackled about the relation between production systems and food security. There is clearly things about the richness of dialogue. This was a multidisciplinary work, and there were dialogue between scientists of different disciplines, which was very rich, and as well as between scientists and non-scientists in our different committees. And for further information, you can look at our website and different articles we started to publish, and we are just starting, and more articles and a book is about to be published. And I thank you very much for your attention.